Hey everyone. It's been such a long time since I sat down here for us to chat, right? And today I'm going to talk about a really cool topic, and I really hope it can inspire you in some way. Actually, this was a video I've wanted to make for a while, but I wanted to wait a bit until this whole thing about my move, which I'll explain to you in a bit. And in the last video, a dear follower left this suggestion in the comments. What did she write there again? Let's start in a way that's easier for you to understand. Well, for those of you who have been following me for a long time, you know that I used to live in a really big house. A house with 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a big kitchen, everything was big. And I loved living there. That's how it was. I lived there for more than 10 years. So it was a very, very happy life that I had there. But life is full of surprises. And as you know, I got divorced. It's been a year now. It was a separation where, I moved out, right? I left home to start a new life. It was a very amicable separation, so I have a good relationship with my ex-husband today. Also, because I have my kids, my children spend 1 week there and 1 week here. And that's where this question comes up, right? Wow, Rafa used to live in a big house and now lives in an apartment that's much smaller, much smaller. So what can I say to you guys? I went through a really tough time, post-separation. It was years of marriage, 20 years. So you don't just separate from the person. You separate from your life, right? So I didn't just change my life, I completely changed my routine. So how did I manage to move into a smaller apartment? How was it going to be? I was left with so many question marks in my head. And what can I tell you guys? Honestly, I'm so happy. I live in a smaller apartment, but I feel like everything is more concentrated here. And another thing, which is actually the theme of this video, right? The title. I had to learn to live in a more minimalist way, especially when it comes to things, because in my house, I had so many things. I had a lot of stuff. I get a lot of things from companies, So we end up accumulating things, even though I try to let go of stuff. The biggest change in my life since moving to the apartment was reducing the number of items, cutting down on things, on so many things, on clothes. So what did I do? I let go of a lot of things, not just clothes, but also decorative items, appliances, things I actually liked because I wanted to start from scratch and I wanted to do this, how do you say it? This sorting through my life, this detachment from things. And since I have a much smaller wardrobe here, I only brought the clothes that I was actually going to wear, clothes that I liked, that brought me some kind of happiness. So I had to bring the bare minimum of things. And in this process of organizing my wardrobe, the same thing happened with the kitchen. My kitchen here is much smaller. So back there I had, 4 sets of dishes, plates, glasses, and so on. And then you start to think, wow, do I really need all of this? Right? And it's so cool because when I think about buying something, that's exactly what I want to share with you all. Minimalism also makes us think about consumerism because, for example, I don't have any more space here in my kitchen. There's not even room for 1 more cup. And then when I see some beautiful dishes, do you think I don't want to buy them? Of course I do, guys. But then I think, where am I going to put these dishes in my kitchen? There's no space. So that really limits me, Because what happens? Sometimes a person lives in a small space and just keeps buying and buying, and that's not really practicing minimalism, So if we live with what we really need, right? The items we use every day, everything that fits nicely, guys, it's so liberating. The same goes for my clothes. Yeah, I've had piles of clothes that reach the top of the shelf and I just say, guys, I can't do this anymore. I can't. So what do? I always do a monthly exercise. I've always done this in my life, But here, I keep practicing even more this idea of minimalism, which is to sort through and really let go of clothes and items I'm not using anymore. In other words, this is their last chance. I brought them from home, they're here, but they're here for one last chance. If I don't use it, if I go a long time without using that item, it's not going to stay in my house anymore, So this awareness is really cool when we reach this level of consciousness, right? Another thing, when I go to the supermarket, since I spend 1 week alone, right? In 1 week, I stay with the kids. So I don't need to buy that many things. So I buy things that I'm going to use more or less during the week. Yeah, fresher items. Yeah, I prefer it this way because I also don't have space for storage to keep unopened groceries. I've already had to throw away groceries because they expired, because I didn't end up making that particular food. So this is also a way of looking at the pantry. So you see how everything changes, right? So I kind of make a little list, a sort of weekly menu. And then when I go to the supermarket, I'm already focused on what I'm going to buy to meet my needs for the week. You know what I mean? For example, when I'm going to have a barbecue, I like to buy the meat at the butcher's on the day or the day before, so the meat is fresh. When I'm going to buy fish, it's so nice to eat a fresh fish. I do have some frozen fish, something like that, There's no way not to have it, right? We always end up having something, but I usually call the fish market I know. They bring it here to my house, so I don't even have to go to the fish market to buy the fish, and I get to eat it fresh. So this change in habit is really transformative too, And then there's the matter of saving money, right? So nowadays my expenses have doubled. Anyway, I have my apartment here, I have my office, right? And, we just by living, we spend money, right? So I've been hitting the brakes more when it comes to spending. Back at the house, I used to spend a lot more. Now I'm more balanced. And that has a lot to do with the state of mind we're in, right? Because what happens, folks? Sometimes our spending is connected to how we're feeling at the moment. Sometimes we're going through a really sad time in life, a depressive phase, a loss, anything like that. And for many people, going to the mall to shop is just a way to fill that void. It's that instant pleasure you get in the moment. But then what happens? This has happened to me before. I'm speaking from personal experience. Being sad one day, and then I would go to the mall to buy clothes, sometimes paying a fortune for something. And when I got home, I'd think, wow, this outfit isn't even that nice. But in the moment, it gave me a rush, a sense of pleasure. But then my credit card bill just keeps going up, right? So yeah, it's also about looking at that, right? Why am I buying these things? Is it because I really need them? Or is it just a little rush, a quick fix that makes me feel good in the moment, But for me to have this awareness, it's a daily exercise. It's a lot of therapy. I go to therapy, which helps me get stronger, because if we're strong on the inside, when it comes time to buy something, we make more assertive choices because we have those insights. Do I really need this shirt? I have 2 white shirts. Do I really need another white shirt? So it's these kinds of insights, looking at everything as a whole. Here in my apartment, that's how it's been, and that's how my life has been. Another thing I've changed, for example, is that I used to have a lot of shampoos. I'm crazy about shampoo and conditioner. I love them. I still am to this day. Ever since I was a teenager, I'm the kind of person who loves buying hair products. But now, what am I doing differently? I make it a point to use up the entire bottle of shampoo and conditioner before I buy another one. I have about three or four different brands that I use. One for after highlights, one that's more for reconstruction, one that's more for hydration, but I stick to that, I don't go bringing in like 3 different products for hydration or 5 for reconstruction. So that's cool because it also gets us researching this whole thing about hair care routines and all that. So we end up getting informed about these things too, guys. And now I buy in a more assertive way, not just shampoo and conditioner, but products that I use up completely before buying another one, so I don't end up accumulating stuff, right? I also went through that change in mindset. And another change, which you guys have probably already noticed, and for me it was a big one, is having fewer things in the decor, Fewer objects, lighter colors. So here in my office, well, not my office. Here in my apartment, there's more of a neutral color vibe, like this taupe you see here. So the whole apartment is more or less in this color palette, like off-white. It's all to bring a sense of lightness to my life, because colors really do that. And this thing about color versus the vibe of the moment we're going through, I really felt that in my office, When I asked the architect to design my office, which is all white, with a few darker objects here and there, I wanted something industrial, something modern, a decor more in that style, and he really delivered. Actually, he surprised me with the final project, because when I asked for an industrial design, I thought the furniture would be darker. I thought the office was going to be darker. Then when he showed me the design, I was like, wow, everything's so light. I never imagined it, and I loved it. And it's funny because when I go to my office with everything so white and bright, it gives me such a nice feeling to be there. And not just me, but a lot of people who have been to my office have had the same feeling. Wow, Rafa, it feels so nice here in your office. Everything's so light, and there are the greens from the plants too. And then I thought, wow, how cool is that, right? What the decor brings to us right here inside. I want that in my apartment too, you know. I want to completely change my decorating style. In my house, there were a lot of more colorful elements. You know, I used to mix a lot of classic with contemporary. Do you remember? And here in my apartment, I wanted to decorate it more or less with that boho chic vibe. And honestly, it makes such a difference because it's so nice when you're in a space you really connect with. That kind of space that feels like a hug, you know? I can tell you that this way of thinking I have now about living with less, even when I go shopping, you know, for clothes, accessories, anything at all, I prefer to save up a little more and buy something of higher quality, even if it means spending a bit more, you know, in terms of price. Thank God I work for that too, rather than just buying little things that I know will break. Guys, I'm not going to be a hypocrite either because I buy a lot of things from Shane. I love Daiso. I have a lot of stuff that I buy like that, but I always think, will I actually use it? Is it going to be a useful product? Right, but we also have to be careful with these sites, you know, which are super popular nowadays and have really attractive prices, not to end up buying a lot of stuff without knowing what you're actually going to do with it, you know? So today I can say that I'm much more conscious when it comes to consuming, even on these sites, you know, thinking, wow, look how cool. I'm going to buy this because I want to try it out. I want to test it, especially because testing products and sharing them with you is part of my job, right? But I still prefer, let's say when it comes to clothes or something for my house, whatever, I'm just giving an example here, guys, to sometimes buy a product that costs a little more but lasts longer rather than buying a ton of things that won't last at all and will just clutter up my house. So really be careful. Seriously, be careful, guys. And above all, what really changed for me was this issue of consumption, completely changing the way I consume things, especially when it comes to my financial organization. Before I used to spend kind of carelessly, you know, not anymore. Now, everything is carefully calculated because I'm someone who loves to travel. I love traveling and I will never stop traveling. For me, that's the best investment. For me, Rafa, it's the investment that enriches me the most, you know? I even have a trip planned that I'm going to take with Alice because she's turning 15 this year. So I'm planning a really special trip for her. So I'm already saving up for this trip, you know? So I try to organize my finances better, you know? Investing my money in investment banks has also made a big difference, even helping me stay more independent, you know? So I don't keep my money in a savings account, and I'm not in favor of savings accounts. I'm in favor of working with, well, we could even talk about this in a video. I'll even bring Carol, who takes care of my investments at a bank. I'll say it here. It's not an ad, okay? I have an account at XP, which are portfolios that I invest in, you know, and it yields much more than a savings account. So the money that earns returns for me, I'm already making a profit. It's a bit of money. It's a little money that I can use for anything, but I already set it aside to invest in my work, in Organize Sem Frescuras. It's an investment for me to invest in trips and also to start thinking about saving some money for my kids because, you know, we always put our children first. It's no different. So these things, guys, personal organization itself, I haven't even talked much about it in this video yet, but personal organization, really working from the inside out, like I always tell you, mental organization, organizing your finances, organizing our well-being thing. So another thing that really changed my life and was truly transformative was the way I started taking care of my health, you know, eating in a healthier way, intensifying physical activities, right? Today, I'm not young anymore. I'm 43 years old, so I'm not young. And that's why I really value my quality of life, you know, not just mine, but also my children's quality of life. So these thoughtful changes, you know, what I'm sharing with you, the fundamental idea that truly less is often more, diligently getting organized, becoming more consciously aware about consumption, carefully choosing genuinely better products, the harmonious colors, the inviting decor, and even the meticulous organization itself. Organization helps us save money, guys, because we know exactly what we have on our shelves, in our boxes. And then when we're at the store or anywhere else, we can think, wait, I already have this at home. I don't need to buy more. Because I know a lot of people who end up buying things twice or even 3 times just because their closet is a mess. They don't even know if their shirt is there or not, so they go out and buy another one. And in the end, it turns out it was at the back of the closet all along. That's pretty much how it is. So that's it, guys. So this change, right? Not just moving houses, since I did move houses, but moving from a bigger house to a smaller one was really transformative. It was a huge challenge. And so when we move from a bigger space to SM, a smaller space, we have to be much more aware about consumption and everything I talked to you about in this video, which for me was a huge change. And even like when my kids are here with me during the week, they're with me. Back there, the house was really spacious, you know? So sometimes Arthur was in one corner, Alice in another. So we ended up not even running into each other at home, you know? Of course, we had our little moments together, but here, since the apartment is smaller, we're much closer to each other. So we're more together. So for me, that was also a really positive point about being here in this smaller space. Yeah, and look, I think we need to find what brings happiness in the place we live to turn our house into a real home, you know? You don't need money to make your house beautiful. No, you need love. You need care. You need to be mindful to make smart purchases so you have a little extra money later so you can achieve a dream. I don't know, do whatever you want. So all of this has to do with organization. So yeah, this video was a way to inspire you in some way and also to share a little bit of this change in my life, this move to a new home. Wow, 20 minutes of video, but you all asked for a long video. Sometimes when I post a short video, you comment, Rafa, make it longer. So look, you have to stay until the end, guys. 20 minutes. Now I'm going to edit it so it'll end up a little shorter. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for following me. This year, R2, Arthur, oh my God, look at that. This year, Organiza Sem Frescuras will turn 12 years old. So a lot has happened in my life over these 12 years. And I can say that every day I'm getting better, you know? Maturity and, well, real life experience, right? And you know, I also have my weaknesses. I still have my weaknesses, my sadness, the ups and downs, the roller coaster of life, but we need to be okay with ourselves. And I know that most of my audience is women. So if you're going through a problem, a process of change in your life, any kind of change, work, a breakup, some disagreement, some fear, some frustration, try to fill yourself up from the inside, you know? Make yourself a priority. Put yourself at the top of the list. The very first thing on there should be you, you know. Take 15, 20 minutes out of your day to do something that brings you joy, you know. It could be reading, it could be physical activity, it could be a prayer, stretching, anything that fills you up inside. Because when we fill ourselves up in here, right, and disconnect a bit from this digital life, even if it's just for 20 minutes a day, you start filling your cup. And when we fill that cup with good things, we feel fulfilled inside. So we start to look at our lives differently and everything changes, really, everything changes. My life changed a lot, right? I know that a lot of people live in a small house and their dream is to move to a big house, right? For me, mine was the opposite. I left a big house and moved to a small one. But really, it doesn't matter how big the house is. What matters is exactly how we're going to live in that environment, in that house, right? How am I going to transform this place so that it becomes a wonderful place every single day? Whether it's that first place I want to go when I get home from work or after a stressful day, like, oh, I just want to go home. I just want to go to my bed, my little corner, my refuge, right? So it's about having that mindset versus the place where we live, the temple, right? I say that our home is our temple. And fill your home with good